I don't think it's a solution at all to terrorism. I think that the United States actually has geopolitical interest in Afghanistan that it's been wanting to pursue since at least about 1998, and it has to do with an oil pipeline. I think that's at least one goal, and I think that the link to Afghanistan has been really flimsy. The claim is that Afghanistan is harboring members of a terrorist group. We've never seen any evidence that there's any real support from the Taliban government of this group. And in fact, if we look at the history, there's a much clearer documentation of connection between the U.S. government and that group, that is CIA support for bin Laden, and yeah, exactly, and also much clearer support, for example, that links that group to the ISI in Pakistan, which we're supporting right now. You know, and given the sort of long history of the United States claiming that it needs to support dictatorial governments in the third world in order to fight certain enemies, and then a few years later attacking those same governments and telling us that they're, you know, terrible abusers of human rights and that we have to go in with the military and destroy them. It looks like they're setting up Pakistan to be another Iraq. So for all we know, in 5 years, we're going to be hearing, well, you know, there are all these awful human rights abuses in Pakistan. Now we have to go in there with the military.
I don't know how people could, I guess I don't forget things easily enough. People who were like mortal enemies are then allies, and then they're enemies again, and they're allies, and I don't know how anyone can trust anyone.
And I think I really have a sense that our administration used what happened on September 11th as a pretext for a lot of militarization and authoritarianism that they had wanted to do for a long time.
Yeah, I've never heard of, or never thought before the Gulf War, probably, that you could ever have any significant military action and not have it affect some civilians. There's not enough distinction between who are civilians or where they are and where military people are, and it seems to me that part of the risk you take anytime you have a military action is that there's going to be some civilians mixed into what you're doing. And it's unfortunate, but it's not surprising to me, and I would think it's naive to think you could ever have a military action and not hurt anybody, essentially.
No va a lograr definitivamente nada, porque los que organizan todo obviamente no son los pobres que están muriendo en Afganistán hoy en día, están en otro lado.
I think it's actually been a strategy in this country to ignore the protest movement, because if you cover the protest movement, the numbers increase. If people know that there are people who are criticizing, that they will come out and get involved. I think that's the way it's been painted, that pacifists are not patriotic. Some of the people who are out there protesting are pacifists. Some of the people who are protesting a specific injustice. They're not arguing that in all cases they don't support any kind of military action.
It's like the same thing. Like I think about how I feel uncomfortable with the idea of war, and yet, you know, I feel like I have this loyalty to be an American and to not be a pacifist. And I don't like killing. I don't think killing is ever right.
So war is not.
Worry has never solved anything. What is it going to solve? What will it achieve? It can't achieve anything. You have to sit down and decide what we're going to do about this. Who can I talk to? Who will listen?
Absolutely ridiculous today as far as that goes, but nothing you can do except
Fight back.
Fight back. And if it takes wiping them off the earth, do it, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm never a fan of military action. In the big picture, I don't think it's ever a good thing, but I think there are circumstances in which I certainly can't think of a more effective way to counter, you know, this sort of thing. I suppose there's a point at which certain people play by certain rules, and you got to kind of go to their level. I don't think that there's any way to resolve this conflict diplomatically.
That's what you're saying. War is wrong. War is wrong.
Okay, war on that kind of level is wrong, period, because you got a bunch of different nations. It's just like each nation represents, let's say, one person, okay? Now, let's just take that for an example. Who says people can't work together to make things better for themselves?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody's always worried about being above somebody else and controlling somebody else when we can all work together and we can all live in harmony, but people don't want to get that through their heads. They all want to be powerful. They all want to be dominant. They want to be the one on top.
Yeah.
I went to a place where they have an aquarium, sharks, turtles, all kinds of fish, and these fish live in harmony. Why? Because they're all treated the same. They're all fed. They don't look
There's
for
no
prey.
fight.
There's no fight. If you can get vicious animals to live in harmony, why can't people do the same?
In LA, around the movie industry that I work in and that sort of thing, it's go ahead and bomb them. It's
The problem is we have too many greedy people in this world that really don't care. See, people in power, they profit from war.
Oh, yeah.
Always.
They do.
And because they profit from war, they have no reason to solve it. None.
Right, because
Does it make sense?
They want it, right?
Does it make sense to you to feed a country and bomb it at the same time?
No.
So you're defeating the purpose. You're feeding them and you're bombing them at the same time. What are you accomplishing other than using great deal of supplies in food and military weapons? Who's profiting from that? The rich, the powerful, the greedy. That makes sense?
Absolutely.
So in other words, what you do is to sustain something, you keep irritating somebody, and you're going to sustain that, and you're killing innocent people over there. Like they killed. The only correlation I have there is that we're killing people accidentally, kind of. Whereas when they killed the 7,000 people, that was on purpose.
I believe we have our own Talibans here. And they're not from Afghanistan, and they are not in the Muslim faith. They are very Christian, and they live in America. And some of them are very good neighbors of mine.
Yeah.
They hate women, they hate children, they hate women and children, they hate mothers without husbands, they just hate, period.
You work your whole life, you struggle to succeed, you want to get to the top, you want to be on the 50th floor of the World Trade Center. You're a master of the universe, looking out over Manhattan, right? And now, an airplane has just come in and destroyed that. If there's anything that's decent, it's made people reevaluate whether that's really where this capitalist society needs to go at this point in time.
Look at that country already. What are we bombing, really?
Yeah. You don't
Bunch
think
of
so?
rocks and mountains and mothers and babies.
I don't know. They're spending $2 million bombs on $10 tents. You know, I mean, they're just hitting sand and they're hitting rubble. I don't know.
Do I think it'll help?
Yeah.
Only time can tell. You know, you can gain more enemies, but I think your coffee's boiling.
I don't know what to say. I know that I can't fix it by myself. But I know people united together all around the world, working for good things and good causes, can